We are
Hello.
badly needed and long overdue. A controversial podcast about Colorado Springs. It's badly needed and long overdue. A controversial podcast about Colorado Springs. I'm your host, Nick Raven. It's controversial because it makes sense. And here's to my virtual left and to your little right is my co-host, Emily Lewis. How are you?
Oh, jeez. I'm good, Nick. Thank you very much for asking.
We're broadcasting from Transylvania today. All right, I'm going to stop that. That's
It's been a long week, apparently.
Yep, it has. This is what happens when you're without chicken wings for too long. You just...
I agree.
You start,
I
and the
agree completely.
Halloween's a couple days out.
Yep.
And I haven't had a Halloween... I don't think I've had a Halloween anything in a while, but usually I'm getting to the age where I'm just getting too tired to leave the house. Halloween to me is going and buying some candy for myself. You know, the big bag that you would pour in a bowl for someone else.
Mm-hmm.
It just goes to me, and I finish it off in 2 days, and that's how it works.
Yeah, no, there's so many fun things going on this weekend because, you know, Halloween is we're recording this on Saturday.
Yeah.
So Halloween is Monday.
Yeah.
The episode will actually come out on Halloween.
Monday. Yeah.
There's so many cool things going on downtown for Halloween. And I'm just...
It's like overwhelmed, like embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, I just don't really think I want to.
Yeah.
Honestly.
All right, I'm going to say this, but I don't know if I believe it. But
okay.
If I lived downtown, if I weren't in basically the middle, this is basically BFE compared to downtown. Like, what am I going to do? Walk 10 minutes to a Walmart and celebrate Halloween there? Like, there's no things going on out here. Everything's a hour and a half bus ride, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Or downtown's, I guess, 45 minutes, but my dream is I would just live downtown. It's like, yeah, let's go to, you know, a club or an event or whatever's going on. And then I could just walk home or bike home or whatever. But being here out in BFE in Village 7, there's nothing going on. I mean, there's churches.
Well, you know, I am downtown and I just don't want to now.
That's fair. That's entirely fair.
Well, I'm dealing with my you know, pre-birthday depression that kind of kicks in.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, yes, for those of you watching, listening, my birthday is November the 4th, this coming Friday.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would like to grace your favorite podcast co-host with a little something sparkly,
special,
or something that folds, you know. I'm
made
all
of
for
rare
it.
metals, you know.
Yeah, something.
Uh-huh.
Or you could just say hello on the YouTube or the Instagram.
Oh, that would be great.
I sound like I'm 90 years old. On the YouTubes or those Instagrams.
If you'd like to help me celebrate my birthday.
Yes.
On the internets, I printed out one of your videos the other day. I don't listen to podcasts, but I do have some 45s that are really swinging.
Woohoo! Don't be a dick, Nick.
Trying not to.
Rude.
Love you.
I know.
So, hang on. We've got a show we're doing today. So,
yes,
today we've got on Joseph Shelton. He's the Democratic candidate for the Colorado State Board of Education for CD5. So, basically the Lamborn district. So we get to talk to him in usual badly needed style. We get to talk about where he's from, not just physically but philosophically, where he's going on, and history, what he wants to do to help the district, and what he would do in that role. He's young. I'll say that loud. He's very young. He's a baby, and I try not to use that against him at all. in his interview. But we do talk
Yeah.
about what are some fundamental things about this job, and
Mm-hmm.
so I think he did pretty good, answering
Yeah.
those.
Oh yeah.
And for kind of the lack of experience, but he's very passionate dude. So
Mm-hmm. 100%, which is something that we need,
yeah, we need some passion.
especially when it comes to education.
God, I know. Yeah, I mean we've certainly had some very uncredentialed people hopping up and serving in public positions for education, especially
Oh,
locally here in Colorado Springs.
like.
Ah, yeah.
Shh.
Ooh, that was so scary. Ooh. So anyway, let's get to the interview. How's that sound?
Let's do that.
All right, Joseph Shelton. Here we go. Pew. So, how's that cheese there, Emily?
Very good, because actually, my lovely friend Courtney found some little pills that I can take as soon as I start eating dairy.
Uh-huh.
So now I can eat all the dairy I want as long as I have a pill.
Speaking of eating all the dairy that we want, Joseph Shelton, welcome. You're the candidate for Board of Education, the CD5, the Democratic candidate. How are you doing?
I'm doing as good as I can be.
Yeah.
Surviving by the day, pushing through the weeks.
Yeah. How's it going being so close to that there's an election going? Did you know there's an election going on?
Is there?
I didn't know.
Apparently so.
Apparently so. People keep
We're
wanting
supposed to
get out the vote.
Vote for
Yeah.
by November 8th is what I've heard.
I got a piece of paper that was folded up and it had a bunch of glyphs on it next to bubbles. And I'm like, it says fill in these bubbles. And I'm like, just fill in all of them, right? How's that going for you?
It's never an easy or fun thing to do, but it's been enjoyable getting to meet the community and grow the learning of what's the needs are of the community, and just seeing where everyone wants this area to go in the future.
Joseph, you've been you're first off, and this is not a penalty at all, but you're really young and you've already run for a lot of offices. So what was it that, straight out of the womb or whatever, when you're in swaddling clothes, where you're like, I have to run for office. I, Joseph Shelton, have to put myself on those sheets and get out there and serve the community?
It started off due to the fact that when I was in middle school, when I was in middle school, my friends and I, we didn't get a voice for our Board of Education. And we weren't allowed to speak really on an issue of when they decided they were going to close our school. And so that's where so much of it began for me, is when I was told I wasn't allowed to speak or raise my voice. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I really saw myself and said, there's something that I should do. But at the time, I was only 12 or 13, so nothing I could really do at the time.
Right.
And so when I turned 18, I sat down with myself and I looked around and I said, okay, where am I really wanting to go in life? What do I want to do? And I saw the fact that as an openly gay man, there wasn't much people who represented me there.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't much of a strong representation for the queer community inside elected offices. I also saw that when it came to our school board, to continually say time and time again that they're listening to our youth. They're hearing what our youth are saying. They're all ages above our youth.
Yeah.
And so that's where I finally sat down and said, you know what, that's where I think I need to be the most, is in our school boards. And that's where I think my voice was needed, was in a school board, in a school setting, and making sure that our youth are actually getting a seat at the table and are actually getting their voice heard. And our queer community, who is where a lot of issues happen in school, is in the queer community. Yep. Really need to get their voices heard. And so that's what made me decide that I wanted to step up and run for a school elected position, and making sure that we are bringing forward our students' voices, the young voices, and the LGBT voices, and making sure that ultimately everyone is getting a seat at the table, no matter who they are, no matter their identity, no matter their age. They're getting a seat at the table, and everyone's equally getting their voice heard out.
So what was it about getting the end of school times that really kicked off this whole thing, and the school district not communicating with you, not wanting your voice?
So we went. My fellow schoolmates and I, and a couple teachers, back in 2009, I went to Irving Middle School. And 2009 was the year that Irving Middle School shut down. And so we went to one of the school board meetings to do the typical thing of, save our school for future generations.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And when we showed up at the board meeting, the first thing that happened was we went to go sign to speak. And security stopped us and said, unless you're 18 or older, you're not allowed to speak.
Uh-huh.
So we're like, that's not right, but okay. We're like, we're not going to argue. We're not going to fight. So we said, all right, fine. Well, then we started going to the venue with, again, the typical signs of, save our school, keep our school open, things like that. And again, we were met with security telling us your signs cannot come in.
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, your signs are too big. They can't be in the venue. And we understood. We said, okay, well, can we go ahead and just leave them in the foyer for people to see? Security's like, yeah, that's totally fine. So we put them up in the foyer. Then as we went to go enter the venue, we were told, the venue is completely full, and we're going to take you to an overflow section where you can watch the video live. So during the entire about 2 hours of the event that this had gone on, we were the only people in that venue. In that overflow section, we were the only people in there. Nobody else had come in.
And everyone else was in the actual meeting room, the conference
nobody
room?
else was in the overflow room.
Yeah. You'd been sequestered away.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then once we actually got done with the whole meeting, when we were leaving, we came and found that the signs that we brought, they were torn up and thrown in the garbage.
That sucks.
And so that ultimately showed me, and that said, not just me, but it showed my fellow classmates and everyone else that, again, we don't have a voice at the table.
Mm-hmm.
We are not being allowed to sit at the table and have our seat and be heard and raise our voice and raise our concerns. And so, again, I wanted to see something change. At that time, again, I was probably around like 11 or 12, maybe 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know what I wanted to see change. But I knew I wanted something to change. And so that's where I said then and there that when I'm old enough, when the time comes, I'm going to step up to the table and I'm going to make some sort of change.
So did you grow up here? Are you from here? Did you move here?
Yeah, so I'm born and raised here in Colorado Springs.
Okay.
Attended Colorado Springs School District 11 from grades 1 through 12. So there was a brief time when my dad was in the military. So there was a brief time I traveled around. And then I lived in California for a couple years as well. But most of my time has been spent here.
Gotcha. So what was your elementary? Where did you graduate from ultimately? Because I'm from District 11, from 7th grade on.
So I went to James Madison Elementary School for elementary. Then I started at Irving Middle School in 6th grade. Like I said, that's the year that Irving shut down.
Mm-hmm.
And then for 7th and 8th grade, I went to North Middle School. And then for 9th through 12th grade, I went to Palmer High School. And so I graduated in May 2015.
Gotcha. So what is it about school? Is it school closures in particular, or was it the Irving school closure at that time that really got under your skin? Because, I mean, districts will come up with any number of reasons why administratively, logistically, they have to close a school. I've never even been a part of that process. What is that process, and how did it really affect you?
I can actually tell you the process. I was on the school board of for like a charter school for 4 years.
Uh-huh.
And the process is actually stupid. It really is. It is so very what word do I even want to use?
Dumb.
Again, it's stupid. It's nitpicky. It's nitpicky. There was no reason for Irving to close when Irving closed.
Mm-hmm.
My Cass actually took advantage of that. The charter school that Cass was attending is actually in Irving now. But no, there was no reason for Irving to close.
Mm-hmm.
It was
a political thing.
Stupid. It was, you can't even say it was political. It made no sense. It made no sense. The numbers that they were trying to show were not accurate for what they did.
They take into account so much things. And one of the biggest things that they make a decision on for when a school must come down to the time of being closed is when...
Hang on. Emily, what happened?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out.
Emily, what happened?
I don't know. Just keep talking. I can still hear and speak, but I don't know what happened.
Well, you switched the windows around. Hang on. We're having one of those where I became a building things, so that's pretty great.
Yeah, I don't know what.
All right, Joseph. So Irving.
Sorry, continue.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that they usually face closing a school closure on is when they look at the fact of saying test scores are not where we want them to be.
Uh-huh.
And this school doesn't have the best test scores in the nation. So they probably have the worst, even though test scores don't show anything of who any person is or any school is or anything like that.
Right.
And so they use that as the aspect to say when it's time to close a school. They'll look at it and say, okay, this school has been failing a lot. Mm-hmm. They haven't been at the spot where we as a state want them. Mm-hmm. So it's time for us to step in. And that's when the state steps in and gives the options to the local school board.
Yep.
They say, we're going to put you on a plan. And during this plan, you have to show us that you're making a change. Mm-hmm. And from there, the school district has to do that. They get a certain amount of time to implement the plan and actually make it work. And if within that time frame, if they don't get to where the state wants them at, then the state makes a choice. Tells them they have to make a choice. Mm-hmm. The two options they have is either the state can take over and the state will step in and make all decisions, or the school the school district can close down the school.
Sure, and then they decided to do the latter.
Exactly. They leave that to the local school district to make the decision. And in this case, the school district looked at it and said, you know what? Let's close it.
Yeah. Yeah. Instead of let's fix the problems. And the thing that really annoys me is that it is so many times it is the schools that serve the poorer populations.
Sure. Yeah.
Because and I don't know about anybody else, but it makes sense to me that if you've got stuff going on at home, if you can't afford school lunch, whatever else, that's going to take you out of your learning space.
Right. And your ability to actually learn.
Yeah.
Well, one of the biggest things they recently just had go on in School District 11 itself, they put Mitchell High School on a 4-year plan.
Yeah.
And
Mitchell should have been on a 4-year plan 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And the thing that became ridiculous with it is they decided in this 4-year plan, they looked at it and said, well, the best option we have now is we're going to terminate every school teacher. And if they want their job back, they have to reapply. So teachers who have been working in this Mitchell High School some have been working in there since the 80s, some in the 90s. Some have given their life and dedication to Mitchell High School. Mm-hmm. And this is how School District 11 repaid them and saying, we're going to terminate all of you and start from step one and start from fresh again.
Yeah. Which is
and it didn't do enough for the school district. While yes, it did show improvements, it's ultimately putting the blame all on the teachers when the teachers aren't the one to blame.
No.
The way a teacher teaches does not show in testing. The way a student learns does not show in testing. The way a school district does their jobs and everything, and the schools do their work, it does not get shown in testing. And that's the way it's been treated for too long, is that the testing shows who every person is.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It absolutely doesn't. My oldest was like me. They were very good at test taking. My youngest is not good at test taking. So you look at those standardized scores and the first thought is, oh, well, this kid needs some extra help or whatever else. No, my kid is very, very bright and retains this information. They just don't test well.
Yeah. You're teaching to the test. It
me.
sounds like you're really busy there. Like some stuff's going on. Right.
Yeah, they just closed out a play, so.
Oh. Oh, fantastic.
They're doing a Rocky Horror Picture Show here.
I know. I saw that.
Great. So you're getting out of high school. You're 18. You're trying to figure out what you need to do to change. What's your first choice then? Are you like, I got to go to school to administrate. I got to figure this thing out. Or I've got to dive into the books and figure out how the system works. Like, what's your path from there?
Video.
Originally, once I got out of high school, my biggest thing is I said, I'm gonna go to college. Mm-hmm. And I started at college. And then it came time for that tuition bill to come out, and I said, I can't do college.
Right.
And so I pulled from being in college, and I have full intentions of going back to school eventually, but I pulled because I could not afford it. And so from there, I first ran for the Colorado Springs School District 11 Board of Education in 2019. Mm-hmm. And I was just freshly 21 years old about. And I had no idea what I was doing at the time. I will be honest, when I first ran for the school board in 2019, it was again running because I wanted to bring forward the voice of the queer community. I wanted to bring forward the voice of young people. And that's what I ran on. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was great. It brought forward a lot of voices. It brought forward a lot of change, but it also did not give me the victory I hoped on. Uh-huh. I actually came in 7th out of 8th place in that election. But one of the biggest things I did is the night of the election in 2019, I called the people who won. If I didn't see them in person, I called them on the phone, and I told them, congratulations on your victory. And once I spoke with them on the phone, one of the school board members I spoke with, they said, Joseph, can I give you a recommendation? I said, please. And she said, join committees. Learn about what we do in the district. Come to the school board meetings. Learn about what the school district and the school board is doing.
I fixed it.
We got you back.
They said, learn about it. And so I took that. I did. I joined the Mill Levy Override Oversight Committee for School District 11, and then I joined the committee, the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Council for the state of Colorado. Mm-hmm. Yep. And I found a lot of things different that I never thought of when I ran for the school board in 2019. And so I ran again in 2021, and unfortunately, my petition was deemed invalid to get on the ballot, which,
why?
I'll be honest, I was okay with.
Why was that?
Not being on the ballot. Only because I did just start a new job, and I was like, trying to run for office plus doing a new job, that's going to be a lot on my plate.
Why was the petition ruled invalid?
I'm sorry?
Why was the petition ruled invalid?
So I turned in my petition the day that it was due. Uh-huh. And one of the requirements they have is you have to turn in a petition with 50 signatures or more. Yeah. And depending on how many people are on the ballot. So in my case, I was originally running for a 2-year seat. So only a petition can be turned in with only one signature on each. So if that makes sense what I'm saying. So pretty much you guys could not sign someone else's petition and sign my petition.
It has to be exclusive. So if they'd signed other people's petitions.
When I turned in my petition, they started counting it. And I turned in my petition with probably about 56 signatures. And when they counted it, they said they got through about 10 signatures. And about, I think they said 7 of those signatures were already on other petition, on another petition.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
So therefore, my petition was deemed to be invalid, and I was told that I couldn't run. And they told me, you can, if you want, you can go through the legal process and you can sue your way onto the ballot. But I didn't feel like that was right.
Right.
I didn't feel like it was right for me to say, that the only way I got on the ballot is because the court stepped in and said I could be on the ballot.
Yeah.
And so that, and then like I said too, I just started a new job, so I said, I'm okay with how it ended. I'm okay that I lost. It's not the end of the world. I take it as it comes, and I'm gonna focus on my new job, and then I'll come back stronger in another election.
Yeah.
And that brought me to where I was now, where I decided to run for the State Board of Education. And originally, when I stepped up to run for this seat, I did have some people who backfired against me, who said they didn't want me to run. They didn't want a person who liked me running. And I was told by multiple people, not going to name names, but I was told by multiple people on the county level who are the heads of the county level that they've already got someone who's running and maybe I should just sit back.
Mm-hmm.
And, I originally, I made a commitment before I announced my campaign. I actually spoke with the campaign manager of the person who was originally supposed to run against me. And he asked me, he said, can you hold off announcing your campaign for a little bit of time and can you meet my candidate? And I respectfully agreed. I said, okay, I will postpone my announcement. I said, but I have to make it clear. I'm not going to postpone for a long time.
Yeah.
Because as everybody knows, one of the biggest moneymakers is when you make your announcement.
Yeah.
And so I told him, I said, I'm not going to postpone my announcement too long, but I will postpone for a little bit.
Sure.
And so I did. I postponed my campaign announcement. And later on, I went to go meet with the candidate. And unfortunately, the candidate came down with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And so the campaign manager and I met. And we spoke, and I told him, I said, I still want to meet your candidate. And so we planned on doing another meeting. And a few days after that meeting, I emailed the campaign manager. And I said, look, I'm sorry, but I have to make my announcement.
Yep.
I can't wait any longer.
Yeah.
I said, and when I make this announcement, I want it to be clear. My announcement is not being made against the other candidate. I have nothing against the person who was going to run against me. I said, that's the first thing I want to make clear. Second thing I want to make clear is whether I win or lose this announcement or my campaign, whether I win or lose the primary, I'm okay with however it goes. I am not going to sit here and throw a tissy fit and say that I should have been the candidate. If I lost against my primary opponent, I would back them and I would go with them. And so I did tell them, respectfully, I do need to make my announcement though.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did make my announcement. And actually, about a week later, I got an email from the campaign manager saying, thank you for letting me know about this. We have decided we are not going to run for this race and we are withdrawing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was the only candidate.
Yep.
So what did you...
easy winning a primary when you're going up against yourself,
Yeah. So what did you
but,
bone up on in order to get, because you had 2 runs for District 11, that board, and they advise you to get involved with the committees and learn what that position is. So what was your homework like getting used to run for the state board? Because that's obviously a whole other ballgame.
I will honestly say when I stepped up for the state board, I did not know what I was getting into.
Uh-huh. Sounds like a trend there, Joseph.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It is a lot of learning, and I will say I'm still learning about a lot of it.
Yeah.
There's things that I said when I first announced my campaign that I said for a long time. And it took someone who was in the education community longer than me to step forward and say, hey, you've got your information all wrong. Here's how this is done.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
I have always told people when I've met for endorsement meetings, when I met for other things, when people said, what do you want from us? I said, first of all, let me say this. I am not going to be that type of elected official or candidate who says the buck stops with me and that my way is the highway.
Mm-hmm.
I want people to come forward and tell me, you've got the wrong idea. Now let's talk about it. And I want people to educate me on things because there is no elected official who's always going to be right on the issue and right on the money.
Sure.
And so when I stepped forward for this race, like I said, I did not know what I was getting into.
And this was last year? What did you announce?
in January 22.
Okay.
And so when I announced my campaign, I thought it was going to be as easy as my local school board. You know, I thought it was going to be I'm just going out and shaking hands and talking about doing some forums, talking to community members, things like that. And then I'm like, later on, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, there's a lot more door knocking I got to do. There's a lot more phone banking I got to do. There's a lot more community meetings I got to do. Like, I'm like, it's not as easy as I think it is going to be. But at the same time, I'm also a person who's always been willing to take on the challenge. You know, I'm okay stepping up to the plate and having to learn things the hard way. Because in my opinion, if you learn things the easy way, if it's not something that you're kind of getting a slap in the face on, then you're not learning from it. Sure. You're not growing. And so I love learning things the hard way. I love having someone come to me and say, you got this all wrong. Now I'll tell you why.
Sure.
Because, you know, some people say, oh, that's embarrassing. That's wrong. Like, is it kind of embarrassing? Yeah, it can be sometimes. But you know what? At least you grow from it.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, and it's that same thing of like, you know, there's that toddler who they act out in public and the toddler ends up getting embarrassed in one way or another. Well, now guess what? That toddler, well, I guess not toddler, but
I was going to say, are you calling yourself a toddler,
Joseph? Because they don't want to be. They don't want to get embarrassed, you know? And so I'm okay making those mistakes. I'm okay learning from them. You know, as long as it's not a major mistake, which none of my mistakes have been major. I've learned from them. I've grown with them. And I've had that community by my side.
Oh, so,
you know, and I'm happy with where I've gone with it.
So what are the big issues? What are the big issues with District 11 in Colorado Springs? Obviously, you're coming at this from a youthful, openly gay candidate stance, where you feel that that group has not been adequately addressed.
Absolutely,
and that's
it has
huge,
not.
and that's a huge heckin' deal. But what are also some of the issues that you want to address should you make it to the State Board of Education? And how do you see that affecting what goes on here in Colorado Springs?
Yeah, definitely. So first of all, I want to make sure we are making an education system. So my top 3 issues are these. First, I want to make sure we're building an education system that prepares our students for a future they want to attain. Not a future we're telling them that they need to attain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, too much in our education system today does it come down to people always, like when you talk to counselors or teachers or principals or any of those people, when a student talks to them, too many times has it been, you want to succeed, you need to go to college.
Yep, 4-year college or nothing.
But that's not the case.
Yeah.
You know, and so I want to make sure we are building an education system that is focused on our students' needs. You know, so if they want to go to college, heck, let's prepare them for college.
Sure.
But if they want to go and become a plumber, let's help them get their plumbing license before they graduate high school. If they want to become a welder, let's help them get their welding license before they graduate high school. Whatever they want to do with their life, let's help them get those licensures before they graduate. So then by the time they graduate, they can walk out those doors and they could say, you know what? I know what I'm doing with my life and I'm ready to do it with my life. They're not walking out. They're not saying, okay, I'm graduated high school. Great. Now what am I going to do?
Are there limitations then to what like trades and stuff can be taught at a high school level? Like obviously in high school, you've got some schools that are, you have the vocation program where so you're in the garage and working with cars and stuff like that. Do you know what schools can do in that regard to build that? And are there things beyond trades that like beyond just like career placement, I guess, like more college, like college light or advanced placement? And Emily, you are like crooked, like you're slanted a little bit.
I know.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, we have picture. That's all we're getting. That's what we're gonna get. Wherever I wander off to, you know, it's fine.
All right, Joseph.
So, you know, one of the biggest things I can say is when Wasson High School closed down in School District 11, they turned it into the Wasson Academic Center. And it does a lot of what I want to see. they do trade license programs.
Mm-hmm.
They do programs that are preparing students for a future they want to attain.
Yep.
And that's where the focus needs to be on. Programs like that. Does it have to be inside the school? Not necessarily. But I do want to see where we are being able to accept as many students as possible instead of saying we're only going to accept a small group as possible.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest hurdles I have heard with these types of programs is they can't afford to accept more than 5 or 10 students.
Sure.
Well, almost, I would say like maybe 200 students, maybe even more, want to be in these programs.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're sitting down and saying, oh, we're only going to accept these 5 to 10 students out of these 200 applicants, that doesn't benefit all the students.
No.
And so, and a lot of it comes down to, again, the budgeting cost. They can't afford to bring in more than those students. And so I want to be able to make sure we are budgeting into a state account that it's taking it and furthering these programs more, that it's funding these programs more. And then it's not only funding these programs more, it's funding them in areas that we don't even see upon. So the urban schools, where they don't have these type of programs.
Right.
It's great that we're putting them into schools that have thousands of students. Excuse me. It's great that we're putting it in schools that have thousands of students and can afford it. But it's not great when we're skipping out on the urban schools that can't afford it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so we need to be making sure that we're reaching out to every single school. And that's actually comes to my third biggest issue that I want to work on, which is actually I want to be balancing our budget across all school districts.
So
currently our budget system is set up where it's accounted for every single student. And they say, oh, they do a student count day every year.
Yeah.
And by the amount of students who show up, they get a certain amount of funding for each student.
Right.
Yep.
But that doesn't work out for every single school district again.
No.
There's some school districts, they have thousands of students, which means they're getting millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Great. But then there's some school districts that only have hundreds of students.
Yeah.
Some even in the low hundreds. And they're only getting a small thousand.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not fair to them because that's not taking into account what they need. We have schools that are falling apart at the walls.
Right.
We have schools that they don't have proper ACs. We have schools that don't have an adequate amount of bus drivers. We have schools that have so many issues going on. And the way that the school districts are being funded is not helping. And so I want to make sure we are taking it. I would like to make it where we can break down that budget somehow, where we could say you get money by this amount of students, and actually build it out where the schools equally are getting a good amount of money. Making it where they're equally getting funded, where they're equally getting supported. It's not fair to say, school district 11, you have this thousands of students, so you're getting millions of dollars, while school district whatever, you only have 200 students, so you're getting about $100,000. Good luck with you. Good luck spending that money this year.
Right.
Yep.
And there's
even the amount of money that District 11 gets, it's still not enough. And
exactly.
So I'm looking at your website right now, and I did not realize that District 5 covers 12 separate school districts, from the really rural ones, to D11 and D2,
and 20 and Monument
all of those. Because I think for me the biggest question would be really the decisions to get made for for District 20 and District 11 and all that kind of stuff. There's going to be there's going to be a significant pushback with these rural schools.
Or from the rich schools that are like, no, we're going to have our cricket team this year.
The thing with the rich schools is so much of their money actually comes from parents. That's why,
look at the property taxes. Like you get those McMansions up there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you've got
Yeah.
these 50, 60-year-old homes in District 2 versus these McMansions up on in Flying Horse, I mean, that's
Yeah,
your
well, and
disparity there.
yeah, and that's a big part of it too. But it's because I don't know. It for me, it would be a daunting task knowing that there are going to be districts who are looking at what we're doing here in the big old city, and are going to there's going to be significant pushback.
Yeah.
Because these are kids. I had my ex-husband's nieces and nephews all went to school out there in Ellicott, Peyton kind of area.
Right. The Falcon, was it 49s out there?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But see, here's one of the other things, though, along with it, is these schools that aren't being adequately funded, when they're not getting the funding that they need, what do? They go out and say, okay, community, time to come together, and time for we need a mill levy override. We need you to vote on adding. First of all, let's just say thank you, Tabor. But they sit there and say, we need more taxes. We need more money. We need more. We need more. We need more. And the fact of the matter is, and that's what's bringing on these other school districts as well, is they sit there and they look at it and they say, they're like Academy School District 20, they don't have to sit there and beg 24/7. Do they beg every now and then for money? Yes, obviously. Yeah. Every school district begs now and then.
Yeah.
But they don't have to beg like every other school district does. And so the fact that what they do is they go out and that's what they tell people, do you really want to move into School District 11's area where they have asked for mill levy override every couple of years? Do you really want to be in that school district? And that's what's making people move into other districts. That's why people are moving away, because there's these people, these realtors coming in and trying to get rich off of what other school districts are doing. And they bring that out. They say that stuff, well, School District 11 has asked for a mill levy this many times, and they raise your taxes this many times, and they take your money this many times. While School District 20, on the other hand, they haven't asked for a mill levy in this many years, and they can fund their schools and yada, yada, yada. It comes down to that. And, again, I believe it needs to come to an equal ground. Do I want to see school districts beg for money? No, I don't. But it comes down to an equal ground of all the school districts being able to adequately say, well, while School District 11 has had this many mill levy overrides, we've had about the same as well.
Not all those mill levy overrides go through. Like a number of, it seems like half. I'm just gut feeling here, but it seems like half the mill levy overrides don't go through, and then they have to do what, sell more cookies or whatever to get their 60-year-old buildings air conditioning and stuff like that. So, I mean, you were talking about redistribution of wealth, essentially, from these, from D20 districts like D20 or Cherry Creek or wherever to redistribute statewide to these rural ones like 49 or 2 or what have you. But then there's also that glass ceiling because of Tabor. So as a state board of how do you? It's one thing to want these things, but how do you actually do that? And in your role as on the Board of Education, how do you affect that change without basically legislative approval?
It's going to have to come to that, honestly. It has to come to the legislative approval, honestly. And unfortunately, that's the honest fact is I know for a fact that there's nothing I can fully say of, well, we're going to go in there and we're going to change the budget system. Well, it's laid into the state law how the budget system is laid out.
Yeah.
But if it's just me as a state school board member standing up and making that change, that's enough people to me. But I believe without a doubt, if one state school board member stands up and says, we need this, other school boards are going to step in as well and say, he's right, we do need this. The communities in those areas are going to step up and say, he's right, we need this. And it's going to be a giant push on our state legislators to say, we need this. We need a law change. We need it where the schools are adequately being funded on all ends. It shouldn't be left to the top 100 school districts to be fully funded. It needs to be broken down to other areas. So it is going to honestly come down to pushing our state legislators. And that's another reason why this November we need to elect Democrats across the state legislations, because they're going to be the ones who are going to stand with it as well and say, you're right, we do need a change.
Yeah. So what are there? So you've got funding, you've got training for post secondary education in that. What other issues are you really passionate about, especially in a
Well,
statewide capacity?
so it's my second thing I usually go with when I announce my top 3 issues. But my big one of the other biggest things is I want to make sure we're paying our teachers a fair and livable wage that they can actually work off of.
Mm-hmm.
And and again, this is another thing that comes down to the legislation having to help us. The sad part is recently they just did a poll across all 50 states, and they asked teachers there, how much are you paid? How much is being paid? And they came up with a sum in each state. And the state of Colorado pays teachers the worst this year in 2022. They pay teachers the worst out of all 50 states.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there's all these school districts saying, well, we pay our teachers great. School District 11 here in Colorado Springs, they are one of the top paying school districts in the state of Colorado.
Yep.
Which is interesting because you go by their schools and it's like, hiring help. We need people. Exactly. Come on.
But, they're one of the best paying school districts in the state. While at the same time, though, it's hard to be saying that, honestly, that they're one of the best paying districts, which means there's other districts in this state who aren't paying well and aren't supporting our teachers well. And that's the bottom line, and the bottom fact is we need to be paying our teachers a fair and livable wage, and not only paying them that fair and livable wage, but making sure to account to that livable wage throughout the year when the economy continues to grow. When the cost of living continues to grow, we need to be continuing to support our teachers on a yearly basis, not just we're going to give you a raise this year, and then let's talk in another 15, 20 years about what we're going to go ahead and do.
Yeah.
Right. Especially with the recent inflation. I mean, inflation's been tame for a long time, and they could kind of get away with it, but with the way things have been since COVID, it's just been a hell of a nightmare.
Oh yeah,
in that regard,
all of it is insane.
Yeah. So what does someone do on the State Board of Education?
So again, we're basically the top board across the state of Colorado.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, when the state legislature steps in and creates laws pertaining to education, we're the ones who kind of implement that into the school districts, and we say this is how it needs to be put in place. We decide on the standards for many of the education systems across the state of Colorado, such as the most recent controversy that was going on in our State Board of Education of the social studies standards. We decide on the standards in many different areas of education. We fight. I won't say fight, but we push for state laws that should be put in place, and we advocate for state laws that should be put in place. Whenever a school falls into, again, what they call the failing status, we're the ones who set up the plan with the school district and making a decision on where it should go. And it also comes down to the line of we make decisions on if we believe that a school board is failing. The school board, believe it or not, as bad as this sounds, the state school board can make a decision that they're going to step in and take over as the authority board of that school district. And so we are the ones when that happens, we step in and we take authority of the school district in the times of need. And then we also, lastly, we set up, we do a lot of the state standardized testings, and we make decisions based on that. Different areas like that. We work in different areas of the budget that's constrained to us. We also hear out debates for charter schools. If a school district denies a charter school, the State Board of Education can hear an appeal from the charter school. Sure. And the State Board of Education can then make a decision of, yes, you should be a charter school, or no, you shouldn't. And what the State Board of Education says goes. So the State Board of Education says, yep, you could be a charter school. Well, you're a charter school now.
Okay. Yep. What can the State Board of Education do about citizen activists getting on boards and you know what I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. What can the State Board of Education do about something like that?
There's not, unfortunately, when it comes to after elected officials, there's not much that a board can do. But we do bring down to the accountability of communities, accountability of school boards. When actions are taken out, when members of the board are acting out of place, we don't have an authority to say, well, you're done with your position now. But we do have the authority to step in and say, that was inappropriate of you. And maybe we should work together to see how we're going to fix this.
Like a reprimand.
Exactly. We do have that authority to step in and push for change. Yeah. When a school district doesn't want to do anything, and they want to just do the little slap on the hand and say, don't do it again.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have the power to step in and say, this needs something more, and it should be held in further accountability.
Right.
Yep.
Because I know some people would take a slap on the wrist as a victory, like, yeah, I got their ire. The deep state Board of Education, Joseph Shelton's coming for me because I'm speaking out my values, just trying to protect the traditional American family,
Mm-hmm. Well, what I find hilarious,
Emily.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Joseph.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, like I said, when it comes down to it, depending where the state school board finds the school district is landing, if we believe that a school district is failing the school district as a whole, we do have the authority to step in and say we're taking over authority of this school district until the school board can come up with a plan that we agree upon, that we say is a right plan for the school district, is a right plan for the students, staff, and the community of that district. We could step in and take over authority and act as the governing body of that school district.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, going back to, some of the people that got elected to school boards, what I find amusing is the fact that the most problematic member of Colorado Springs District 11 School Board actually had his schools closed down by the state.
Yeah, so it's the state coming for them over and over. It's just a vast conspiracy. They're trying to turn the frogs gay or something. I don't know. It's just
that was.
I just gotta say, don't say we're trying to turn frogs gay, because you'll hear that and he'll believe it.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
God. No.
No.
Well, thankfully it's my word, and I'm not running for State Board of Education.
Right.
So, have you been out to the rural districts? Have you been out to Teller County and all that? Like, because obviously, when you're in District 11, you have a certain, or even just in the Colorado Springs area, you have kind of a view of what education is. But as soon as you get to like Calhan and stuff like that, like when your graduating class is 30 people, that changes and the values are different there. So have you been able to go out on the road and like just see what it's like to be in the rest of District 5?
So in my former employment, when I worked for Inside Out Youth Services, I took travels out there. And I did see a lot of stuff that I'm like, this is surprising. And I did hear, in running for the state school board, I honestly will say I have not made my way out there. But I have had like meetings over Zoom with the people in that area and spoke with them about the needs that they want. And when I brought up my top 3 priorities, when I brought those up to them, a lot of them 9 times out of 10 looked at me and said, that's exactly what our school needs.
Mm-hmm.
When
especially when I started saying about equalizing the budget.
Yeah.
A lot of those urban school districts looked at it and said, yes, please. That's what we need.
What do rural districts need? Aside, you obviously better teacher pay, the usual, but what do rural districts need that like District 11 doesn't?
What they need mainly right now that District 11 doesn't is they need better pay of teachers, is they need better funding. While Well, School District 11, some of their schools are going without ACs. Some of their schools have other issues. The schools out in these rural districts have it a lot worse. Where again, like I said, there's some school districts out in there where their bathrooms are being locked down every other week because something's going on with the piping system.
Mm-hmm. Or they freeze.
There's times where I've heard about. There's times where I've heard about the water fountains coming out with brown water because things aren't up to date out there. Those are the issues they have out there.
The infrastructure and stuff.
They really need fixing upon.
I'm sure transportation's a big deal out there when you've got sending buses across miles and miles of freaking roads out there.
Yeah.
And I have to say, the busing issue is a major issue across not only in urban districts, but it's a problem in every single school district right now. Many of them are going they don't have enough bus drivers. I attended a School District 11 board meeting last year, I want to say sometime. And president of the board, Parth Malpakam, but one of the staff members for School District 11, Glenn Gustafson is his name. He used to be a lead for School District 11, one of the top people. And he told the board seriously that he sees in 10 years down the road, that the only students who are going to be bused to school will be the special needs students. That he does not, because of the bus driver shortage that we've been having a lot lately, he does not see that we are going to be able to bus every single student into school anymore. And that the only people that they will be busing is special needs students.
Wow.
And the sad part about that is when they said that, this does come down to the Parth Malpakam, the president of the D11 Board of Education. His comment was, and I quote, "Well, that's 10 years down the road, so that's not something we need to worry about right now."
Oh, no.
Kicking the can down the road.
Oh, no. No, that is definitely something that needs to be worried about now.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it comes down to the case of, if we take care of it right now, we don't have to worry about 10 years down the road.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be something where we're waiting until we reach the stop sign to start stopping the car.
But Joseph, students can learn from home. They have the internet and laptops. They don't need to go to school. They don't need buses, Joseph. Why do you keep pushing for buses, man?
Because 90% of the kids do not learn well on the computer.
What?
Well, let me say this. Let's make the claim that we're going to say we're going to eliminate buses altogether, and everyone's going to learn from home.
Oh, God.
The problem is, first of all, in schools, at least here, let me take the example of saying School District 11.
Sure.
At least 5%, maybe even more now, but last time I checked, 5% of their students in School District 11 are homeless in some sort of way.
Mm-hmm.
At least 20% last time I checked do not have access to internet at home.
Yep.
Which means we're putting these students at risk. And that was one of the biggest things I stood on during COVID, of saying, where are we supporting these students who can't get the internet?
Yep.
Yeah, it's great that we are handing students laptops and tablets and iPads and whatever else. Yeah, it's great that we're supplying these needs, but that's not supporting the student who does not have access to internet.
Nope.
You know, saying, well, they can go to a coffee shop, they can go to the library. Well, God forbid, because we know eventually it's going to happen. Let's just lay that down in wood right now. We are going to eventually, sometime in the future, we are going to have another pandemic.
Yep.
Sure.
It's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
It's the truth. But the fact is if we come down to a pandemic like that we had like with COVID, and we have the fact that we have to close down schools again, we need plans in place that we are supporting our students to have proper internet. It's not enough to say you can go to the library. Well, the libraries might be closed down too. It's not enough to say you can go to a coffee shop. The coffee shops might be closed down too. What are we doing to support our students who are in need? Because by that time in the future, that's 20% without internet access right now. is, I guarantee you, is going to be sitting at 30 to 45% of students
Easily.
who are going to have without internet access.
Right.
While I could sit here and I could say, thankfully, I am privileged in my life to say I have internet access at home. There is a good amount of students who are not privileged enough to say they have internet access at home.
Yeah.
Right.
Just a real quick, if you're listening, watching, whatever, you can go through Xfinity, and they offer a $9.95 a month internet access.
Right.
For low income families. If you qualify for SNAP benefits, you qualify for this benefit.
Right.
And no, we are not sponsored by Xfinity, but you know what?
I've got
Hi,
some
Xfinity.
words. I've got some words for Xfinity. Trust me. I've got some more, and Comcast too. Okay, I got some words for them as well. But I mean,
I'm just saying.
I mean, I can understand. Pandemic has changed how we learn, how we work in that, and it's nice to, there are people who are absolutely advocates for working from home, but educating from home is very, very different. And even though I did not care for high school in the slightest, there was a value in going to the building every day. Otherwise, I wouldn't have dropped out. It would have been the shame of the family, but it would have been it would have been a miserable time.
Students get out of going to school every day is they do, or not every day, excuse me. They don't go to school on the weekends, but
thankfully,
those who go to school, one of the biggest things they get out of this is some of them do get breakfast and lunch, and that's the only for some of them that is the only meal they get during the school the school week.
Right.
God forbid what's going to be happening to them on the weekend, But for some of them, that they only are getting those healthy meals when they go to school, which is why I just got to throw this out there. Vote yes on Proposition FF.
Yeah, no, I'm right there. I'm right there with you. Absolutely. So, what are
before you say anything, Nick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Don't talk about anything interesting. I will be right back. I am out of.
Oh, get your Mio.
Drinkless.
Get that.
I'm drinkless.
You get. Go grab.
And we know
drink.
that doesn't go out. That doesn't go over well. I'll start coughing like a maniac.
Yeah, don't do
I'll
that.
be right back.
All right. Joseph, let's talk a second here. What are the next steps? Like, you get into office or so, and I don't know what that polling is like, especially since it is the district of Lamborn. That's it. Every candidate we've talked to, it's obviously an uphill battle against Republicans, conservatives, whatever words you want to assign. So what does the race look like, and then what's next?
It's exactly that. Honestly, it's an uphill battle. Thankfully, so many people, both Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, every single party affiliation that I've spoken to when I speak to them, they say the same thing. They'll ask me, who's your opponent? And when I tell them my opponent is Steve Durham, they look at me and they say, who?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, he's been on the state board for the last 8 years. And they're like, wait, what? I said, yeah, he's been on the board for the last 8 years. And I'm like, and I tell them that's the bad part about this. You don't know who your elected official is.
Right.
And
it's not a very publicized position.
It's not. But let me say, I've got to brag on this a little bit. This year, Steve Durham actually almost had a primary opponent. His primary opponent did not make it through the caucus. So he did not get the nomination or get onto the primary ballot. But once his primary opponent dropped out of the race, his primary opponent emailed me through Twitter and said, Joseph, I agree with you. Steve Durham is not doing his job correctly. So I, keeping in mind, a Republican, am endorsing you, and I'm supporting you, and I'm standing behind you.
That's cool. That's cool.
And so that's one of the biggest things about this race is I'm not making this a race about saying Democratic values only. Right. One of the biggest things I've said while running on this race is I don't think that school-related offices should be a partisan action.
Nope.
Right.
It shouldn't be. I Democrat, you're Republican. It should be about what's important for the future of our youth.
Right.
And so that's been what I've been running on. And so thankfully, there's been a lot of people who have enjoyed what I've had to say in that regard. There's been a lot of people who have stood behind me and said, if I'm willing to hear everybody out, that they're willing to work with me on it. And one of the biggest promises I've made is that once I am elected in November, I'm not waiting until January to when I get sworn in to start getting to work. I've made the promise that once I'm elected on November 8th, beginning November 9th, I'm creating a community council, which will be comprised of Republicans, Democrats, independents, libertarians, of any political affiliation. It's going to be comprised of them. It's going to be comprised of students, teachers, parents. It's going to be of retired teachers, of retired affiliates. It's going to be made up of urban community members to suburban, to the city people, to the whatever community you come from. This community council is going to be made up of everyone, of every background, and they are going to have a seat at the table, and they are going to give their voice. They're going to be able to give their voice. And that's one of the biggest promises I've made on this race, is that I want to make sure everyone's being heard out, because everyone deserves a chance to be heard out. Yeah. I don't care what their affiliation is. When it comes to education, I may be taking something wrong. And I want to hear from some people saying, you're wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then I want to hear, let's talk about it and hear why you think I'm wrong. And let's build a plan of what we're going to do to make sure I'm doing something right.
Yep.
How do you energize people to get involved with that? How do you say, I want to do this thing, I want to bring in all these people, and then it's like school district something or what, and then 3 people show up? Like, how do you get people excited about this and why it's a big deal when it seems like only the most ardent vocal are the ones who participate? And I realize that's true across all politics too. Is like only the people who participate win, right? But in particular to education, like I remember you had that the meeting with the new superintendent at District 11, and unfortunately it was like kind of like no one was engaged at all. So how do you energize people to, this is your kid's future, or this is other kids' future?
Well, don't tell them it's other kids' future. They don't care.
Well, I'm trying to change that, Emily.
The number one thing is, again, talking to these people and saying, you get energized in saying how, CRT shouldn't be taught, which, by the way, it's not taught in school. But you sit here and say how CRT isn't being taught, but you're not coming to the table and telling us what you want done.
Yep.
You're just sitting there going to the school board meetings and screaming at the top of your lungs that this needs to be eliminated, but you're not actually sitting at the table and talking with them. You're just screaming and shouting.
Right.
So it's a matter of telling people, if you want change made, let's actually sit at the table together. I guarantee you, if I'm as a Democrat and to be elected, I guarantee you that many Republicans are going to want to sit at the table, because they're going to want to sit down with me, and every single time I make a decision, whether good or bad, they're going to want a good majority of them are going to want to sit there and say, you did this wrong. You didn't do what I wanted, and you did this wrong. And so there's going to be a good majority, I guarantee you, of Republicans who are going to want to take part in this. I think my hard fight is going to be getting those other people to the table who want to bring forth these issues. But again, it's doing exactly that, telling them, I want to hear your issues. I want to hear from the students. I want to hear from the teachers, which I would hope that those are the ones I'm making the decisions on behalf of them mainly. Mm-hmm. I would hope those are the ones who want to be at the table, be at the front of the table.
Yep.
And so it's a matter of asking these people to sit at the table with me and to pull it. And if I can't make a seat at the table for them, pull up their own dang seat and make their own seat at the table.
Yeah.
But Joseph, my history book mentions Martin Luther King Jr. That's critical race theory right there. We have to ban it.
Yeah. No.
I have to say, I went up to Monument for their 4th of July festival. And I spoke with someone, and he said, well, I want to know what's your opinion on CRT. And I said, CRT is a college course. CRT is a course that you are required to take if you're trying to become a lawyer or a judge or do anything in law. CRT is a course you're required to take for that. CRT is not something that we actually teach in schools.
Nope.
Do we teach Black history? Do we teach that slaves were owned by white people?
Of course we do.
Yes, we do.
Because that's history.
Yeah.
Do we sit there and teach that Black people are arrested more than white people? Yeah, we do, because that's
or not enough, honestly.
And so that's the bottom line is we need to teach in our schools factual, honest history.
Mm-hmm.
That's preparing our students. The biggest thing I was always taught when I was coming up in school is plain and simple. If your education is making you feel, if you're comfortable in your education, you're not learning it right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always have been brought up on that belief that education should it make you 100% uncomfortable? No, obviously not. You shouldn't be sitting in a class like that. You feel like you're looking at blood and gore. I mean, if you enjoy blood and gore, then okay. But you should not be sitting in the class being like, okay, I'm 100% uncomfortable with what's going on. But you should be sitting in the class looking at things and saying, okay, this is uncomfortable for me, because first of all, that takes you out of your box.
Yeah,
it helps you learn. It helps you grow. But second of all, again, if you're comfortable in there, it means that everything is being done for you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what should be happening in our education system.
Right.
No, we don't need to teach that, slaves came to America willingly to, because they were tired of being wherever they were. They wanted to come to America.
Yeah.
But and then they had to pay off their debt like indentured servants. That's absolute total and complete bullshit. And our kids need to be taught the actual truth about slavery. They need to be taught the actual truth about the continuing issues that the African American community has when it comes to police, when it comes to housing, when it comes to, getting into college, everything. That's something that they need, that they should be aware of 100%.
Right.
And, these parents are yelling and screaming about, well, this makes my kid feel bad for being white. We're kind of supposed to feel bad because we're white. Because if we feel bad,
what our country has done.
Yes, but because if we feel bad, then there's so much more. It's easier to change when the oppressors feel shitty.
Yeah.
Because they've been the oppressor. Not always, obviously. I mean, we have a huge history of, again, whitewashing.
America has a pretty big history of being shitty. That's kind of just. Yeah. And it's not like we have to suck it down like a chocolate bar that's laced with, I don't know, rat poison or something, but we can acknowledge it and use that to build something better. Yeah. And I think that's important that we touch on that. Emily, did you want to ask the question?
Ooh, the question. I mean, we obviously already know the answer to the question, but so one of the questions that we've been asking everyone that we've spoken with is, what happens if you don't win this election? Are you going to quit? Or are you going to run for something else?
My full intention is if I don't win this election, I have to see. As I stated before, I have not finished my college degree. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, where I am currently employed at, they will actually pay for my college education.
Yep.
And so my intention is to go back to school. So if I don't lose this election, either A, I'm going to go back to school and finish getting my college degree, because like I said, I've started, I just never finished. And I'm going to go back and finish getting my degree. Or option B is I will run for office again. Either way, if I do option A, I will be running for office again in the future. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to at least focus on my college education first, before I run for office again in the future. But if next year like I said, I'm either going to go back to school or I'm going to be running for the school board of District 11, and bringing forth the concerns and the facts of Director Jason Jorgensen and Director Al Loma, and racism, homophobia, xenophobia, transphobia, all the phobias that they
all of them.
Yes, there's so many phobias involved.
Yes. Yeah, that's and honestly, because as we have asked everyone, and the answers pretty much across the board seem to be that, okay, if I don't win in this one, then I might have to do another thing first, but I'm definitely going to run for office again.
Yeah.
And which is what we need. One of the reasons that, we're looking at the fact that Stephanie V. Hill stands such a good chance of winning her, winning her race is because she's done this. What is this, her second or third run, Nick?
This is her second run. Yeah.
So, getting out there and the name recognition and the face recognition, just because people
you got to build a brand.
Well, not only that, but honestly, when people sit down with their ballots, people tend to be kind of stupid. So if they see a name they recognize, we're like, oh yeah, this one, I recognize this name. This is, and they don't always remember why they remember the name. They just know they remember the name.
They saw the sign.
Yeah.
And it opened up their eyes. They saw the sign.
Shush.
My
Get
goodness.
me started.
But yeah, the idea is that, you run again because in other positions, sure, your people build up this brand, they do it once, and this is your, like, you did District 11 twice, this is your first going to state, but it sounds like education and trying to affect those changes are kind of what you're focusing on, aside from obviously your collegiate education.
Yeah.
I'll just keep running until I become secretary. No, I'm kidding.
That's how it works. Eventually, it's just an honorary position. It's like you're just gonna have a position that they give you. Just whatever's left over. Here, just be governor, Joseph. Well, did you have any? Or Emily, did you have any final questions? I don't know if you can hear me. Emily, did you have any final questions?
No, I do not actually. Excellent. I think we've pretty much covered. I think we pretty much covered everything. I did want to. Crap! I closed out the page.
No.
Anyway, so no, I guess I have no further questions.
Joseph, did you have any last remarks as we're like now a week and change from... Actually, when this goes up, it'll be 8 days from election day.
It'll be 8 days from election.
Yeah. What's your last moment plea to people to vote for you?
I just got to say, let's remember the fact that Steve Durham has not showed up in our community. Let's remember the fact that Steve Durham has been in the State Board of Education for the last 8 years. Prior to that, he was a lobbyist. Prior to that, he has been in politics since 1977. He was actually part of Ronald Reagan's administration as the Environmental Protection Agency representative for this area. Steve Durham has not shown up in our community through the times that he's been elected in office. He hasn't worked with us as the community. And it's one thing to have an elected official who holds you in mind. It's another thing to have an elected official who's going to bring you and go with you in hands.
Yep.
I'm that type of person who's going to promise right here, right now, not only am I going to hold you in mind when I'm making votes for the State Board of Education, I'm going to hold you by my side, by your votes through the community council, by your talks through the community council, by your opinions through the community council. I'm going to bring forward the belief of the people with the people. I'm not going to say this is my opinion. I'm going to say this is my community's opinion. Mm-hmm. An airplane is flying over me right now.
Yay!
So, I'm going to make this it's not a campaign by the people or for the people, but it's a campaign with the people. And so, again, I just say, I'm candidate number 1 on the ballot, top line. I would love everyone's support. It's a chance to make change and actually make improvements inside of our education system that are not politicized, that are not one views, and that are not one personal view. It's time that we make those changes. It's time that we bring forward a new belief and a new education system. And it's time that we build a system that is focused for the future of our students. So I appreciate you guys allowing me to be here.
Yep.
That was very well said. Thank you.
If anybody wants to talk further, feel free to check out my website at sheltonforco.com. And yeah.
Definitely. Oh, yeah. I'm just going to shift this around. Well, thank you for being able to come on. Absolutely.
Yes, for coming and chatting with us on our very, very professional podcast.
That's right. As I'm shifting things around and all that fun stuff. Yeah. Thanks for coming on, Joseph. And
thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Well, there we go. That was our interview with Joseph Shelton.
Ta-da!
Yeah, ta-da. He's got a week or so. I hope if you haven't cast your ballots yet, obviously you should be casting your ballots. But make sure you get some extra bubbles in there. Make sure you know what the right people to pick in there. So, good chat. I think that's the longest I've chatted with Joseph too.
Yeah,
and we had some fun. I think you heard it. We had fun.
We always do.
Until we don't.
No. We are nothing if not hilarious. Most of the time.
And sometimes with Dracula.
Those are our choices, hilarious or Dracula?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because Dracula is not inherently funny, but if you laugh at him, I mean, that's just secondary to the whole thing.
Okay.
All right. Emily, do you want to get us out of here?
Yes, I do, actually.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Professional. Are you done?
No.
Oh, Jesus. All right. Badly Needed and Long Overdue is a podcast about shaking things up in a conservative city. This show was hosted by Nick Raven and Emily Lewis. It's me. You can watch the video version of this show on YouTube and listen to us in podcast form on every single one of your favorite podcast platforms. Our theme music is by the Knock Blockers. They're a local ska band. Very awesome. Highly recommend you go find them on social media and see if you can catch a live show where they also do a longer version of our theme song. You can also reach us on a whole bunch of different social media platforms like Instagram, Badly Needed Podcast, on Twitter at Badly Needed COS, on Facebook at Badly Needed and Long Overdue Podcast, and on TikTok, which is Nick's favorite, at BNLO Podcast.
Excellent. We are Badly Needed and Long Overdue. Turn in your ballots.
Yes.
Come on, get out the vote, participate in our democracy, and we'll see you next time. Pew!
Oh, Jesus.